Okay, guys and girls. So obviously you've just taken your Unit 3 test. Now we are starting Unit 4. Um, so what Unit 4 is, if you're looking at the Google Classroom, which we'll kind of look at shortly, it has two topics in it. The first topic is known as the Roaring Twenties, which take place right around 1920 to 1929. And then it gets into the Great Depression. Okay, this is the time between World War I and World War II, which is a interesting time because there's a big rise in social change and economic change through this time. And then there's, of course, the Great Depression. So we're going to go over both of these topics in length. The Roaring Twenties, though, is a little bit of an interesting time period for a couple different reasons. Number one, there's a lot of different topics. So one day, and for like 2 days, we're going to spend time talking about Prohibition. You're going to learn what that is. And then next, when you get back from break and whenever the next lesson is, you're going to learn about the women's rights movement. And then we're going to jump around and look at the economy. And then we're going to go and look at culture and Black culture throughout this time. It almost seems like we just jump from topic to topic. And there's almost like no rhyme or reason. But basically, the Roaring Twenties is all centered around the word change. Okay, so please copy down what's in yellow here. Okay, we want to just get a good sense of what the Roaring Twenties was. So it lasts from 1919 to 1929, and some consider it still a part of the Progressive Era, but there's definitely some distinct changes. And it's all centered around changes in American society. And the Roaring Twenties, almost where you get the name Roaring from, is like it was almost like one big party. So we're going to look at how this was almost like one big party and how this led to some serious changes in the United States. All right. So you're not writing this down, but if you can read, you'll see that there's a period of economic changes. You're going to start to see extremely wealthy and rich people, but still we have some very poor people. You're going to see the differences between the two. Okay, you're going to look at how lifestyle changes. Okay, there's a period of social change. Okay, there's a rebirth and a change of culture specifically for women and African Americans. Then you're going to have a difference between what's known as traditional people, more old school type people, meeting this more modern type of person who is used to these cities, used to these parties, used to this different way of life that are going to constantly clash with one another. And of course, there's a period of political change, which is there's going to be development of new governments around the world that's going to affect the United States, along with America becoming more isolated and making sure trying to prevent another world war from happening again. So everything is centered around change. And the first change we're going to look at is going to be the period of social change in the United States, and that is going to be centered around Prohibition. So I'm going to verbalize the focus question to you, so please write this down if you can. The focus question that's going to be for the next 2 days, because this is a 2-day assignment, basically. We'll get into the next lesson tomorrow, but it's going to be centered around Prohibition, and the focus question is, why was Prohibition, and the spelling's right there at the bottom, why was Prohibition such a failure? And that's their focus question for today. All right. So after World War I, America goes through some serious social changes. Okay. The biggest of which happens to be, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but there was a time in our country where alcohol was made illegal. Okay. We know it's illegal for people under the age of 21, but it used to be illegal for everyone in the country. Okay, this was passed by a constitutional amendment. So we're going to look at how this kind of happened, and we're going to look at if, focus question is Prohibition was a failure. We're going to look at, some things that led into this decision. So number one, okay, alcohol was a huge problem in the United States because so many people participated in drinking alcohol at this time, and this led to some serious problems. And most of the people who usually drank, just stereotypically, were men. Now, this led to some problems, so let's kind of talk about it. When you drink, okay, alcohol, all right, for those who should not know at this point, but for those that don't know the side effects, okay, generally that's going to lead to some bad side effects. That's going to make you a lot more angry at times. It's going to make you less able to do normal things because you're wobbly or drunk or you can't see straight or walk straight. And this became a problem because there were so many people drinking in the United States and getting drunk that people would go to work drunk. People would be around their families drunk. And this just led to constant problems. And many women especially, felt the worst about this because they had to deal with the biggest problem surrounding this. And I'll explain what I mean. Many women at the time, this is not even a stereotype, this is just a statistic truth of the time, many women, okay, did not work. Okay, many women at the time were raising families, did not have a job, so they relied on the men in the family, okay, to bring home money. If the husband is constantly going out and getting drunk, okay, and they're getting fired from their job or they're not making as much money because they're spending all their time drinking because they're probably addicted, that's going to cost your family money and that's going to cost your well-being some money. Another problem, ladies and gentlemen, is obviously this, okay? Sometimes people drink, they get angry, and this led to a lot of domestic violence against women. So women really were the leaders of the charge of what's known as the temperance movement. Okay, the temperance movement was a time where people were going around trying to stop the ban, have a ban on the manufacture, meaning the creation and the sale of alcohol. Okay, this led to a very famous constitutional amendment called the 18th Amendment, which banned the sale of alcohol starting on January 1st, 1920. Now, there were some loopholes, I just want to say. You were allowed to drink alcohol if you bought it before January 1st, 1920. Okay, so you could drink alcohol for a short while, but ultimately this was a law that said you could not sell it. Okay, now I'm going to kind of say this. Even though the government banned the sale of alcohol, and even though the goal was to get people to stop drinking, you ready for this? People drank more and people sold more alcohol. They just now did it illegally. They just now did it illegally. All right, so if you're not done copying, then just pause the video, but I'm going to explain what's going on now. You're going to try and say my estimated time is 12 to 18 minutes. Okay, this should take you. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on this Prohibition infographic analysis, which I'm going to share with you. Give me 1 second. It's not popping up. I don't know why. Try this. All right, there it goes. So you're going to click on this. It's basically statistics on Prohibition. Okay, so you're going to look at the photos here. You're going to read all of the things here to kind of get a better sense of what was good or what was bad about Prohibition. Okay, and you have the same thing here. Okay, so you have 2 pages of this where you're going to kind of look at statistics to kind of get a more familiar feel. Now, you have questions here on the right. You are not doing those questions. These are not the questions you're working on, so please do not do them. Okay, you have a separate set of questions that look like this, and it tells you what page number. There's a total of 7 questions, 3 on page 1, 4 on page 2. You're going to work on this and complete the assignment, okay? When you're done, you can hit turn in, but the assignment is not over. You have to now come back to the notes and finish up our assignment here. Please do not just do the assignment and not come back to the notes, because this is the real important part going forward. So give yourself 12 to 18 minutes, take whatever time you need. You should pause the video right now, and when you're done with the assignment, you come back to the video, okay? And you are going to you're gonna come back to the video and go to the next slide and finish copying things down, okay? While you're watching the video, okay, if you want to pause this, okay, this would be a good area to pause here. Here are some, vocabulary that can maybe help you out. So you could pause the video here if you don't understand certain words, or you could just look it up, of course. Okay, so pause the video, and now you should be returning after you're done with the assignment. Okay, so at this point, you should have done the assignment, so you should have a good understanding of why Prohibition was such a failure. So in simple terms, Prohibition did not work. So problem number 1, okay, crime throughout the country absolutely skyrockets. We have so many more people now committing an act of crime, whether it's selling alcohol or making alcohol. Okay, you saw the bootleggers and the moonshiners. Okay, crime throughout the country skyrockets, and people still find ways to drink alcohol through the bootleggers and the speakeasies, which you will become more familiar with tomorrow. Okay, if you look at the chart here, 1921, these were the percentage of people that were breaking the law. Okay, it's like 40% that have committed a crime. And then by 1922, 23, it's like, over 80%. It's insane. Okay, so people never really stopped drinking. People never really stopped selling alcohol. They now just did it illegally. And the people that used to sell alcohol, okay, were no longer in control of it. You know who became in control of it? That would be the mafia, okay, or gangsters, okay, depending on the perspective. So, big problem number two, there was a huge boost to organized crime. The mafia became much more well known, specifically the Italian mafia and the Irish mafia at this time, all because of alcohol. Okay, because when it became illegal, people still wanted it. So now the criminals will take an opportunity to start selling it. And that's what happens here. You'll learn more about Al Capone tomorrow, but this is Al Capone. He's one of the most famous bootleggers throughout the time. He's also one of the most notorious gangsters because he made a fortune selling all of this illegal alcohol. And the cops knew it, but they didn't do much about it because he had so much money he was able to pay them off. But you'll learn more about him tomorrow. Okay? This led to some serious crimes, some serious problems, and the goal of Prohibition was to get people to stop drinking, have less crime. It's done the complete opposite. This is good proof when a law is unpopular, okay, and people don't follow it, it's a very crappy law. People just kind of go around it, okay? There's a law, a rule at PS 89, no phones in school. Well, you guys love your phones, so if it's not really something that, the principal and assistant principal and teachers are going to really hover over you with, you're going to use your phone. Okay, you're going to Snapchat, you're going to do all those things unless it becomes a real issue where you can control it. But if you don't control it, okay, if you don't really care about the rule is going to be broken. Okay, and that's exactly what Prohibition was. People were supposed to stop drinking alcohol. That was the rule. And at first they were okay with it, but then they really weren't. Okay, so this became a huge problem throughout the Prohibition era. Final slide, you're copying down in yellow the results from Prohibition. With the increase in crime and the fact people still continue to drink alcohol, okay, Congress is going to pass another amendment called the 21st Amendment. Now, you'll learn about the 19th and 20th Amendment a little bit later. It happens in between the 18th and 21st. But the 21st Amendment is a very simple amendment. Okay, and so is the 18th Amendment. The 18th Amendment basically says that alcohol sale and manufacture is made illegal. You can't do it anymore. And technically speaking, whatever's written in the Constitution cannot be changed, cannot be taken away. So you have to pass a separate amendment. Okay, you can't take an eraser and erase what's in the Constitution. That's not allowed. So instead, they had to pass another amendment called the 21st Amendment, which is going to make alcohol legal again. The 21st Amendment just repeals or takes away the 18th Amendment. So that's why people over 21 are now allowed to drink again. Okay, but for a span of 13 years, almost 14 years, they were not allowed to drink legally. But we saw that didn't really change things. All right, so you just got a good sense of Prohibition and the time where alcohol was, made illegal. This was a huge change in American society, as you can imagine, a huge social change. And we're going to look more into Prohibition tomorrow's lesson 2. We're going to look at the oversimplified version of Prohibition, which is a very good video. I'm excited for you guys to watch. Now, just a heads up, if you're watching this, okay, on February 10th, so this is like 8A6, 8D6. Just keep in mind, obviously, I'm in the hospital if you're watching this with the baby, okay? So I'm not really available. So I cannot go over the oversimplified questions, but you'll see when you get to the assignment, there's a timestamp. The answers should be very clear, and you're going to work on that tomorrow before break, and that's it. Okay, you won't have any break homework. All right, so that's it. Have a good rest of your day, guys, and I'll see you next time.